Testing, testing. JB here. Monday, May 12th. No tariff Monday, I guess we call it. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. Talk really quick about the market. Some names I'm looking at go from there. S&P futures soaring, rallying. S&P set to open up over 3% to the upside. Nasdaq up nearly 4%. Small caps 4.25% after the China-U.S. trade talks actually resulted in a better than expected outcome. Right? I was talking on rant pretty much all last week. I think on Friday there were scenarios, right? The scenario number one, no deal, markets gap down 2-3%, probably more. A deal, but no pause, tariffs still in place, still working things out. That'd probably be markets down a little bit or flat. And then we have the 90-day pause. And the 90-day pause, best case scenario, not only did they do the 90-day pause, but then they put the tariffs back to where they were before April 8th, right? So it 10% on the U.S. exports to China and 30% on exports into the U.S. Some of that's the fentanyl, 20% to 10% baseline, whatever it is. Just better, much better than expected scenario. So it's funny you see the headlines over the weekend, and you still have a lot of folks who are bearish. Oh, too late. Shelves are empty. So there's still a lot of that there as well. But I think it removes a lot of things, right? And the first to me is it removes the uncertainty of the worst case scenario. And I think that was the market probably there was still a chance that hey, there was no deal, and then we have a worst case scenario where there's pretty much zero trade being done between the U.S. and China, right? That would have been the worst case scenario. And then the middle case is hey, they're going to work things out, tariffs stay in place, and then that obviously would still have a serious implications for the U.S. economy and the world economy. And then this is best case scenario. Things get opened up, backlog of orders or what have you that was waiting or that was shipped ahead will start to catch up, and maybe have some folks who actually pick up the pace just in case the deals don't come out better than expected. So to me, it's like there's going to be more borrowing from the future in regards to orders, Christmas orders, all that stuff. So I mean, you got to think the GDP I mean, who knows? Hopefully, well, not hopefully, but there could be an extreme amount of imports for GDP's reads for this quarter and next quarter. So anyway, great stuff. Just on Friday, the thing that really got me, and I always say, well, not always, but fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. When I went to Liberation Day, I had a kind of an optimistic view that hey, the tariffs are already baked into the market. Things won't be too bad. Markets could kind of find footing and rally, and that couldn't have been further from the case. Lots of uncertainty from that day that was just unveiled on the market. Kind of surprised everybody. So then on Friday, you think, okay, maybe there's going to be a decent outcome for the tariffs. And then Trump comes out with the 80%. Oh, 80% tariffs sound right on China. Who knows? Maybe that is going to be the number that comes out after the negotiations. I don't think that's going to be the case. But that kind of gave me pause that, hey, maybe this is not going to be as positive an outcome as I would think there could be, and kind of left me holding back on adding spec calls, right? So kind of kicking myself here today for not at least putting on some kind of lotto. But we'll see how today plays out, right? So 580 was a big spot. December, January, February, March. If we can hold 580 here today, I think that bodes well and maybe sets us up for a test of 590. Of course, the 200-day moving average finally above that, just remarkable. And 584 would put us flat for the year. So after everything going on, we're only 5 months into the year, and we'd be back to flat after what you thought was going to be the biggest market correction and bear market of all time, right? Recession, all these things that were getting played out. But I've been saying this too over the last couple of weeks. I don't think we're out of the woods yet, and obviously there's still more trade deals that have to happen, and we don't know exactly the T's haven't been crossed, I's dotted for this deal. So who knows how this all plays out? So I would love to get more constructive on some names, and I think over the weekend that kind of allows me to get a little more optimistic on maybe some longer term plays, but I'm still somewhat cautious. So I put it on the watch list. 580, that's a big spot for me. I wouldn't be surprised. You still have people coming out with these bearish spins on things. The people who probably were short at 610 on the SPY and held all the way down to 480, right? The people have been calling 2000 of the last two bear markets, right? I mean, it's always good to have at least a little skepticism, right? To be open to possibilities. But most of these people are just open to just market turmoil, market crash, right? So they're not open to the fact that hey, maybe this craziness that all happened, maybe this ruffled some market things, and it's like a garden, right? Weeded out some of the inefficiencies and make people more productive and things like that, and maybe this will help put next leg of growth in the global economy. Who knows? Yeah, that's me. Again, I try always to look at things a glass half full scenario. But let's hopefully SPY can hold 580. Go from there. And a nice little meme here. This is from Bar Charts, and Pinto posted it too, showing what folks at the S&P I posted up at the top. S&P 500 or Pinto did. Nobody was at the counter at 4,800, but now everybody's at the counter at 5,700. Like, oh yeah, we called it. Anyway, all right, that's kind of the overall market. Individual names, and I'll still be open to some spec lottos here today if we hold the 580s. But probably not an ideal scenario to try and chase the gap at the open because premiums will be elevated. So I'll probably wait for the first 30 minutes or so. But the same names I've been looking at, the Restoration Hardware, which tested 230 a minute ago in the pre-market, the Wayfarers, which up here at 38. I had the 35 calls on Friday. I had the 220 RH calls expire on Friday. And then deck here too, which is at 128.50. And 128.50 was just nearly at 128 last week on Thursday. So those, depending on what the premiums look like, I mean, if things kind of hold their ground on the SPY and 580, you look at Restoration Hardware and how much of the move since the start of the year has been on tariff concerns, and was all the way up at 450. And then they had earnings, which I thought weren't that bad either, was the next leg from 250 all the way down to 125. Here it is. I could see it trading up to 255 plus. So don't be surprised if I had some spec lottos there if I can find some decent risk reward strikes. Same on deck. Another name. I mean, it seemed like the start of the year started out with a bang, then it had its earnings, which I thought were not too bad. But I mean, ever since then, from 230, 220 all the way down, broke under 100 for a little bit on peak tariff concerns, and then it's been bouncing. So 140 maybe, 140 plus this week. And then last but not least, Wayfair. And I could see Wayfair trading over the 40s, especially now you have this China deal going on. You have to speculate. Vietnam already said zero tariffs. You have to think there's going to be a deal coming soon. If that happens, I can see W trading much higher. Now some other names. GME, another almost flat week. Yeah, Friday's move. It was up 2.8% on Friday. Put it green for the third. Actually, I think it's the fourth week in a row. But pretty much flat the last 2 weeks. Just a matter of time. You look at Bitcoin over the 100,000 threshold, up at 104,000 here. I keep saying like a broken record, but that there's going to be an announcement here soon. But May expirations here, so I'm probably going to look for some Julys or even some more Junes today. A trip is up, gapping this morning, almost near $16 in the pre-market. Probably going to lock the last of the June 15s in just because they're in the money. It's similar to what I did back at earlier to start the year when Trip rallied into money. I closed the closer dated strikes, and then I might look to get some later dated because I can see this visiting 17, $18 in the coming weeks, and the risk reward looks better on the further out of money strikes. And then bio names, right? So, the big announcement, I guess, that Trump was hinting at when he had his press conference last week, he said, the biggest announcement in years is going to be coming. It's around drug pricing, right? He's putting an executive order that's automatically going to drop drug prices 50% or 80%. No one knows what that all looks like just yet. So it's kind of like sell first, ask question later with the biotech names, especially the foreign ones, right? I mean, the margins on drug prices is insane. I mean, you take tit for tat. I mean, this is a known issue for a long time where you take the same drug in the US as in Europe or other countries, and that same drug price is 500% or a heck of a lot more expensive than where it is in any other country. So I don't know how all that looks like, but what it does do is, especially companies who have a lot of revenues in production abroad, it's going to lower their margins and things like that. So I do still see this as possibly maybe this is the opportunity for some of these names. So don't be surprised, especially Biogen, Regeneron, VRTX, which is taken on the chin. Maybe it's a bounce. So don't be surprised if I get some lottos there. It's similar to tariffs, right? I mean, it's like a known issue with drug pricing. I mean, it's not anything new, right? It's been going on, and it's like you're blaming the outcome of the issue, right? The drug prices to me is not the issue. So all the things that go behind it, the insurance, all the the circle jerk stuff between pharma companies and all that fun stuff. Of course, we all know it's not R&D doesn't cost the drug to be more expensive in the U.S. than any other country. That's not it. But if anything, this executive order maybe it, again ruffles the feathers, pulls out the weeds, and we'll have to see how things 232 separate from. Okay. All right. So that's a pharma anyway. So VKTX, which looked like it was finding a bid over 27. Yeah, it's still hanging here. I'm still looking for some later dated strikes. The last of my freebie 32s expire, so I'll probably just hold those midweek and maybe look for some more strikes there. GPCR, same thing. The last of my May 25s expire. Just holding a couple of those. I'll look to close those and add some later dated strikes. Travel Zoo is over 15 bucks here in the pre-market. Another name, I think this trades up into the 20s, been turning around for the last week or two. Still got the June strikes. I might look for some more strikes too on strength here today. And then there's earnings this week, right? So there's Walmart, you have Baba, SE Global, a lot of other names, some of the energy, Oklo, however you pronounce it, some other names report. Uh, Walmart looks interesting, right? So their investor day was the big move when they kind of shook off, said, hey, tariffs aren't going to be as big an impact just yet. And talked about their online business, their Walmart Plus, all that just really starting to go. And I'm like, wow, the 105s look interesting on a risk war basis. We report earnings Thursday morning before the open. Don't be surprised if I had some spec calls for premium build into earnings. And then I didn't get the implied volatility moves out. I'll have those out later today. And I might find some other names that look interesting on a risk war basis for some premium build into earnings. That's that. Still have Exact Science calls. That was up near 55 in the pre-market. Going to need a big move here into the end of the week for those. And then the PM calls. I mean, I couldn't have timed it any worse. It's down another like $4 here in the pre-market. I don't know if that's on the tariff news or the pharmaceutical order, executive order. Uh, Tough one. So I'll probably put that on my do not trade list for a while. Another name, and I've talked about TKO for a while. They had earnings last week. I think dropped about 6%. That's just a name that I've always wanted to try and get in. I tried to time it, or I was watching it back when it hit lows post-tariff announcement, Liberation Day. Definitely a name I'll be watching, so don't be surprised if I had some strikes there. And let's have a great day, folks. I'll be back on audio later. Rock and roll.